How much does it cost to live in Spain? That is the question I'm going to answer today. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. If you're considering moving to a different country, of course, it makes sense to think about how much it will cost you to live there. Spain is very affordable, but where you go and what your life looks like there makes a big difference in the cost of living. So let's go over what some of the factors are and then give a few specific examples that will give you a better idea of a total cost. I haven't lived all over Spain, so all of this is information either from my personal experience where I live or from research I have done online. If you find that some of your numbers are different, I'd love to hear your thoughts. There is one factor that I personally believe makes the biggest difference. That is location. The first thing to consider about location is the general region. Think of the United States. Obviously, the cost of living in California is far different from, let's say, West Virginia. The same goes for the regions in Spain. For example, the Madrid and Barcelona cities are going to be some of the most expensive in Spain. That doesn't mean they can't be affordable, but if you're looking to get the most out of a difference in cost of living, you may want to consider some less expensive areas. Valencia and Alicante, the cities that my homes are closest to, have more of a mid-level cost of living relative to other places in Spain. Or you may want to check out Murcia or Granada for an even lower cost of living. Speaking of Granada, I'm planning a group trip to Sevilla in Granada this coming April. We're in the last 30 days to book if you want to join me in Spain. I'll leave a link in the description. Give yourself a Christmas present and join me on an incredible trip. The next thing concerning location has less to do with the region and more to do with radius from the nearest large city. For example, if I go onto idealista.com and look at one-bedroom apartments in the city of Valencia, the average apartment seems to be around 1,200 euro per month, with some going as low as 750. But then if I go to the city of Gandia, which is 30 minutes away from Valencia and significantly smaller, but still has a lot of big city options, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment on the same website seems to come in at around 700 euro per month, with some as low as 500. Then, if we go a little further from Valencia to the town of Oliva, which is about a 45-minute drive from Valencia and significantly smaller than Gandia, not offering as many of the big city options, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment drops a little further to between 500 and 600 euros per month, with some as low as 400 euros per month. As you can see, the further from the city you get, the lower rent becomes, which is a pretty significant factor. Of course, if you stay in a small town, you may need a vehicle if you want to go to the bigger cities very often, which could end up being more expensive than, say, taking the metro regularly when you're in the city. As you can see, there are so many different preferences that determine your overall cost. But while we're talking about radius from the nearest big city, I should also mention that rent isn't the only thing that becomes less expensive. If you go out to eat regularly, the cost will likely be significantly less in small towns versus larger cities. So there's an overall cost savings if you're staying further from a big city, but again, the need for a car could eat away at that savings. Not that you have to have a car, you don't. So let's chat about everything else that gets lumped into cost of living. If you take rent out of the picture, the overall cost of living in Spain for a single person is 753 US dollars. The overall cost of living for a family of four without rent included is 2,656 US dollars. The average is 34% lower than the cost of living in the US. But now let's look at specific cities. In Barcelona, the cost of living for a single person without rent is $839 per month. For a family of four, it comes to $2,941. So you can see there is a little jump up from the average in Spain. Okay, let's look at Madrid. For a single person without rent, we are looking at 791 US dollars. For a family of four, we're looking at $2,818. Again, slightly higher than the average, but only by about $40. Now let's look at Valencia. The cost of living here for a single person is less than the national average, coming in at $699 per month. Again, this is without the added cost of rent. For a family of four, it comes in at just $2,477 per month. There are some really great calculators online where you can put in your specific circumstances and the city or area you plan to live in to get an idea. Of course, so many things come down to personal preference. Like, I go out to eat once per week. That's what I budget for. But if you go out to eat 5 or 6 times a week, your monthly spend would be a lot higher. We've talked about restaurants, but let's talk about groceries for a minute. Based on my spends in the United States and doing similar shops in Spain, I have found that my grocery bill is is about 50% less in Spain than it is in the US. That's a significant savings. If you know your budget in the US, I would recommend building in a bit of a cushion over the amount I just mentioned. Maybe budget 75% of what you spend on groceries in the US. Now, here's something important to keep in mind. It's one thing if you are like me and you just visit Spain for 3 months at a time, living off of your income from abroad. It's another thing to consider retiring in Spain or working online and living in Spain as a resident because you have to consider the taxes. Now, Spain has made some generous offerings recently to minimize the tax burden for certain visas. But let's just use some hypothetical numbers to really think about the impact. Let's say you make 40 grand per year in whatever country you're a resident in, and you will continue making that income when you become a resident in Spain. Well, in the US, you would fall into a 12% tax bracket. In Spain, that same amount of money would fall into a 37% tax bracket. Now, this is just the general tax bracket for residents in Spain. This is not the exact tax for every single visa type, but this would be the norm. So after 12% tax in the US, you have $35,200 left to spend for the year. But after the 37% tax in Spain, you have only $25,200 left to spend. That's a huge difference. So while the cost of living may be significantly lower in Spain, you have to balance that with the tax burden to see if you're really going to be saving. Now, maybe you want to buy a cheap house in Spain similar to what I've done. You can reference my video right up here if you want to learn about the annual cost of owning a home in Spain. In that video, I determined that after utilities and taxes, it cost me about $215 per month to own and operate that house on any months that I'm living there. This does not include any maintenance or repair costs, but it does include annual taxes and my utilities. So let's go through my total expenses while I am living there as a single person. I spend about $60 in groceries every week. I go out to eat once per week where I spend about €25. And the only reason I spend that much is that since I only go out once per week, I will usually treat myself to an appetizer and drink as well. I still need to pay my cell phone bill, which runs me about $75 per month, and my health insurance, which runs me around $180 per month. As you can see, you can simply fill in your numbers to get your own personal calculation. So with $215 going toward my house every month, $240 going toward my groceries, $100 for going out to eat, $75 for my phone, and $180 for my insurance, that brings me to a total of $810 per month to live in my house in Spain. Now let's talk about what this doesn't include. 3 things: transportation, which may vary and you don't technically need it if you live where I do. Travel expenses, so if you're flying back and forth to your home country, I haven't included that. And I also haven't included any emergency or miscellaneous expenses. For example, if I had to go to the doctor and spend €100, that's not accounted for. I will briefly mention my car costs for a moment just so that you can have an idea of costs if you own a car. I spend about $150 per year in what is referred to as a road tax. I spend about $300 per year on car insurance. And if I'm living there, I might spend around €30 per week on gas. That really depends. When I'm staying in my town, I don't use my car at all. But if I make a lot of trips to other cities, the cost of gas can add up. So let's add in at least €150 for your car per month. This is just to drive it. This does not include maintenance savings. That would bring my total monthly cost from $810 per month to $960 per month, still coming in under $1,000. With all of that said, in my opinion, if you owned your own home in Spain and didn't have a mortgage or rent, and you lived on a budget as I've mentioned, I think bringing in $2,000 to $2,500 per month after tax would give you plenty of cushion and the ability to still save, invest, and give a little. Of course, if you make even more than that, you could be super comfortable. Now, let's take all the bills I mentioned and assume that they would all stay the same, but instead I wanted to rent an apartment in Valencia. Instead of the €215 per month that I'm paying on my house, let's say I was paying for a €1,200 per month apartment. It basically adds about $1,000 a month to my spend, which without a car would bring me to a total of $1,795 per month. It might be just slightly more because going out to eat would probably be a fraction higher. Now, with a car, car, that brings me to around 2 grand per month all in. I probably wouldn't be super comfortable in that scenario unless I was bringing in at least 3,000 to 3,500 per month after tax, and I'd need to have a decent emergency fund too. The little things that come up almost daily in life that we need to pay for really need to be well thought out when you make a plan. Well, what do you think of these numbers? For my friends who are living in Spain, do you feel like these numbers are similar to what your experience is? If you're someone considering living in Spain, did this give you more to think about and consider? If so, are there any questions I can help answer for you? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you need more detailed help, I also offer one-on-one coaching, which you can find on my website, traveltomoney.com. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to join me every day, where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.